I have a understanding of identity as very much a relational concept, which means that I recognize that people are embedded in concentric circles of relationships, and they may not even always be concentric. You can imagine Venn diagrams, right? So I've got my church community, I've got my work community, I've got my neighborhood, I've got my family. And so I think that people just are complex beings that are constituted by all of these relationships and by the narratives and the stories that they can tell. So what ends up happening is at the end of the day, I don't have a sense of identity that there is this authentic, true person that can be lost, right? What I believe is that you've got this person who is this relational, dynamic, socially constructed being who navigates the world at all times, and at all times has a story that makes sense of who they are, what they're doing, where they're going, what they stand for, and that complex mix, the answers to all those questions, the stories they can tell in response to that, that's the identity of the person. That's who they are. So because of that view, I think that I have concerns about certain kinds of ways in which we sometimes engage with people. And one of the things that certainly happened to me is in the context of trying to be supportive of me and trying to respond to my grief. I had a number of people, well-meaning caregivers, who would say things to me like, "That's not your mother anymore, that's the disease." And it was about trying to say to me, look, it's code for Francoise. The woman that's hitting you, that's not your mother. We know your mother's a nice person. Francoise, the woman that's yelling at you, don't worry, that's not your mother. And I'm saying, well, no, it is my mother. That's what makes it so hurtful. That's what makes it so difficult for me to try to make sense of. And if you tell me those things, and if I should make the mistake of believing you, then I really have lost my mother. And I don't think we should lose anybody while they're living amongst us, no matter how much their lives are constrained. We have the opportunity to cradle people, and we have all been cradled at some point in our life. And I guess what I'm looking for is, how do we find a way to cradle these very important people who have a life trajectory, and they're at a particular phase of that life trajectory, and we can choose to make it meaningful, or we can choose to dismiss them. She's gone, she's not your mother. And I think we do wrong there in two ways. We do wrong to the person who's grieving because we don't allow them to experience that grief fully. Because if they embrace the idea that they're gone, then they just park them in an old folks' home and leave because they're gone. And we also do something really wrong to the person themselves, because I don't believe they're gone. I believe they're changing. I believe they're changing in ways that are challenging, and in some cases very challenging. So I don't want to make light of that. But I want us to see those as changes in a life trajectory that is ongoing and complicated. And I think if I can, I would sort of summarize it by saying, I know that relationships are built on interactions, and I know that those interactions are about retrieving memories and making memories. And as the person loses the capacity to do both of those things, what comes under threat is the relationships of belonging and recognition. And so what I'm calling for is help them to belong, continue to recognize them.